Hiya, I'm Tamusas, and let's get serious. Yeah! Holy Paladins, Paladins of the Light. We are going to receive a buff. Get ready, it's going to be glorious. A whole new talent tree has been created. Lots of new abilities are on there as well. I'm going to go through them in this video. Enjoy. Bestow Faith. You would press the button. It would wait 3 seconds and then go boop. It would heal you and give you a holy power as well. Very useful in PvP against rogues, and it's an instant cast spell that costs very little mana. It's gone. It's removed from the talent tree. It's not coming back, I'd imagine. All we have in its place is this other one, which nobody really uses right now, because why would you need both? It's called Barrier of Faith, and now what it does, it gives you an absorb. Doesn't give you any holy power. Your absorb is small unless you cast a flash of light onto the target. Now that costs mana, and the actual cost of this, the spell, was massive. I tried to use it in arenas, and it just sent me It's just completely pointless to use. So even without spamming flash, it costs a lot of mana to use it regularly. And having to, as I said, with Bestow Faith and Barrier of Faith was a bit weird. So I can kind of understand why they've removed it. And now they're buffing Barrier of Faith slightly, making it cost less mana and have a bigger absorb. Rule of Law. This is an interesting talent. You could spec this and get that 60-yard Holy Shock in. What it did is it increased the range of your heals. And also, because it increased the range, it also increased the amount you heal, because it increased the effect of your mastery by 50%. Our mastery basically means the closer we are to people, the more we heal them for. So this kind of like gave you extra range and extra reach with your mastery. Your mastery will become stronger when you press this ability for about 10 seconds. Now, it was a bit ridiculous in raids because you could reach somebody at 60-yard range. No other healer can do that. And now what they're doing is they want to keep it so that you have to be tactical with where you're stood as a Holy Paladin. You know, so the mastery remains the same. So the closer you get to somebody, the more they heal. But they want it to be still very strong. So they're bringing back an old form of mastery, which means that your beacons of light, which you can place up to 2 on the allies of the entire raid, they will also act as like a light that people can get close to. So it's not only how close you are, it's how close the target you're healing is also to your beacon. So smart healers will have 1 in the range group and 1 on the tank. If they're in the melee themselves. Maybe they're in the melee group themselves. So if you're in the melee group as a Holy Paladin in a raid team, and you have both beacons in the tank, it's a bit silly. You should have 1 in the range as well, in case you have to heal a ranged target. They've moved Echoing Protection onto the class tree now, which is a very good move, because it's important to use. Every time you use Blessing and Sacrifice, your target would take 15% less damage for a short period afterwards. So don't worry about that not being there. That is still in the tree, just on the left-hand side. It's in the actual class tree instead of the specialization tree. Holy Infusion is the new talent that we're going to be able to choose. It means that Crusader Strike will hit once and give us 2 holy power. Also means it will deal more damage. And Radiant Onslaught is actually now removed from the game. So we can no longer have 2 charges of Crusader Strike. In addition to that, Crusader Strike actually has a big increase on its cooldown. A 50% increased cooldown. So, yeah, it's going to be tough to be a Melee Wings Paladin, I foresee. Now, Holy Shock is going to get 2 charges and be much more powerful. But it will not have a 30% critical strike increase by default like it always has. They're taking that away entirely. Now, Glimmer of Light will be increased. They'll be increasing the amount that it deals damage and that it heals. I think it's on one of the posts by about 1,000%, but it is the big change, and it does actually heal more now with a Glimmer than it does with a Shock. So a Glimmer can really heal for a very large amount right now. Sanctified Wrath, the talent that you would pick to mean that when you pop wings, you have a 40% cooldown reduction on Holy Shock. That is gone. It's removed from the game. It's gone. And there is nothing in its place to replace it. That's just too powerful an ability now, because I believe they're focusing on trying to make the Holy Paladin spec based around Holy Shock, and making Holy Shock a more interesting and powerful thing to use. You know, something more tactical, really. A lot of the new talents coming out are going to be changing that too. So what they've done is they've made Infusion of Light different as well. So Infusion of Light is going to receive a buff, and it's actually going to be way more powerful now. You're going to be getting a 70% mana reduction, and you're going to be getting 2 holy power from your Holy Light. You're going to get a 70% reduction on your flash, and you're going to get 2 holy power from your Holy Lights. With Glimmer of Light now, you can choose between 2 talents: Blessed, Focus, or Illumination. Now, one will increase the damage and healing by 10% of Glimmer of Light, but it means it can only affect 1 target, which to me sounds really dumb for 10%, especially when you consider that you can get up to 8 targets with the other talent. I don't think that anybody's going to be picking anything other than Illumination. I could be wrong, Perhaps it's good for a raid situation, but as they're increasing the amount of healing from Glimmer of Light, I doubt it. You'll want it for your allies, right? You won't just want it for extra boss damage. Glistening Radiance is an interesting one. So spending Holy Power has now got a 15% chance to trigger Glimmer's healing. So Glimmer's now becoming almost like a healing over time effect to an extent, and it will also encourage you to be spending more and more and more Holy Power. So, which is really good for the game, because the people that are then doing their rotation well and pumping out the Holy Power, pumping the heals, are going to be creating more heals and creating a better result. Which talent would you pick? Well, you have to pick them all, I think, to be honest. One of the interesting ones here is that there's going to be more of a there's more sustain now through Glimmer. So Glimmer's going to have like an absorption shield that it gives as well when it heals. So it's very good for you if you want to be a paladin in a dungeon, trying to like do plenty of damage, keep people up by nuking the enemy with a holy shock. You know, you're going to hit the enemies with your Glimmer, you're going to heal your allies with your Glimmer, but now in addition to that, you're going to give your allies an absorption shield. So it will be really good for sustain and help you to feel like you can actually do damage while healing. Daybreak is an ability which will consume your Glimmers, and it looks like Divine Plea, right? The old Divine Plea from Wrath of the Lich King Classic. That's because it basically is. It's going to transfer your Glimmers into mana at a certain rate. And it seems like a strong and interesting way, again, to reward people for using Holy Shock tactically, for getting the Glimmers up. It's all about Glimmer. It's all about Holy Shock. That's what it is so far on the changes. The revamp, that's what they're going for. Now, one of the biggest, strongest talents is Glorious Dawn. Now, that is insane. That's absolutely insane. You cannot not pick that, right? 10% in chance to refund a charge of Holy Shock. Going without that, you must be mad, right? For 1 point, and in addition to that, it's for every Glimmer you have. So again, you're going to be rewarded based on the amount of Glimmers that you have. In addition to that, you're going to be able to do like a machine gunning Holy Shock afterwards, you know? So due to the talent Rising Sunlight. That sounds quite cool to me. I like the idea of it because you obviously when you're out of mana, you're probably in a bad spot, right? Especially in PvP. So getting your mana back and then receiving like double whammy Holy Shocks, you know, that's going to be pretty cool. Shining Righteousness is the most exciting talent on the tree if you ask me. Not in terms of healing, but in terms of damage. Currently, you wouldn't choose to use Shield of the Righteous to spend your Holy Power and create damage. Why? It simply doesn't do enough damage, and Word of Glory or Light of Dawn, the other two choices for Holy Power spending, they have a chance to generate Wings, and Wings gives you 20% increased critical strike. So why would you want to waste it on Shield of the Righteous? It can't even generate Wings. Now, not only does it do more damage, it'll also give you a heal if you do 5, just like the Protection talent. So as you can see here, I pull all the mobs, put down my Lights Hammer, and I go for Shield of the Righteous. I start to build it. Every single one you do, the damage of Shield of the Righteous is actually on top of Shining Righteousness. So you have two factors. So it means that they can tweak it as well and ensure that Shield of the Righteous will always be worth doing to create damage in M+. This is a big step in the right direction, along with this talent, which was originally given to the Retries. When you throw Judgment now, you have a chance to create a second Consecration. At the moment, our main damage as a Holy Paladin is Consecration, which makes this very exciting. Because you can overlap with Consecrations now. And if that's your main damage in the patch before, imagine we can do massive AoE damage. It's going to be great fun. We're going to have a free heal on the end of every 5 Shield of the Righteouses to be able to keep the group up as well, which is bloody insane. Will we be able to do it consistently? Will we have to stop to heal? Yeah, we probably will. But this will make it so that when we do actually spend points on something other than healing, it doesn't feel stupid because it will do big damage and we'll get a heal for it. Aura of Reckoning is a PvP talent that you may or may not know exists. Now, this ability is going to be gone. It's going to be removed from the game. What it used to do is it used to take into account the critical strikes made by your enemies to you or allies within your aura. And at 100 stacks, you'd be able to throw a Judgment and get yourself a free Wings proc, essentially, for about 8 seconds. Now, they're going to combine that with the current Awakening, which gives you a 15% chance to get a Wings proc when you spend Holy Power on Word of Glory or Light of Dawn. Notice, not Shield of the Righteous, which is why the Holy Paladins were spraying and spamming spray just because they had to get the Wings procs. They're trying to stop that from happening, and Aura of Reckoning and Awakening are going to combine so that every Holy Power you spend will essentially contribute towards a buff, a stacking buff, and once you get to 8 stacks, You have a judgment, again, just like the Aura Reckoning talent that you can throw. But how the stacks will generate won't be to do with the critical strikes of your enemies. It will instead be to do with the holy power that you spend. And this time, you'll be able to spend it on Shield of the Righteous as well, which is brilliant, really. Massively good change. And again, it puts the player in control. And it's another thing that a player has to track. So it separates the good paladins from the great paladins. Veneration is even stronger now, as it will actually heal up to 5 allies, similarly to how you do in Avenging Crusader mode wings, melee wings, and it will heal up to 500% of the damage done, split evenly among your allies, which is insane. You throw a hammer now and you will receive a reward in healing. Again, another change to give you more sustain whilst you do damage in M+. Fantastic. Avenging Crusader, your melee wings, is the #1 pick right now for speccing as a Holy Paladin PvP. I can't tell you for a fact that it won't be any good, but I'm fairly confident that given the changes to Crusader Strike, it will be far weaker. Casted heals are getting a bit of a buff as well. We're going to have a choice now between Divine Favor or Hand of Divinity. Basically, we're going to have another double whammy, but it's going to be for a holy light, not a holy shock. Whenever we use Hand of Divinity, it's a cast. We finish the cast, we will receive a buff, which means that your next 2 Holy Lights are instant casts, which is really good. Interesting, tactical, I like it. Tears Deliverance is another one to think about. Tears Deliverance is a casted spell, which is quite frankly not very strong. They intend to make it much stronger by increasing the amount of ways you can interact with it, and again, it's all to do with Holy Shock. They're going to be adding in the capacity to be able to increase the duration of Tears Deliverance with the Holy Shocks. And what you would do normally is you cast it and you have to spam Flash or spam Holy Light, and that was it. Now they want you to be able to do Holy Shocks between time as well to also increase the duration. Because it extends the duration of the buff, which will increase the healing received so easily now and by such a larger amount than before, I believe this spell will be very popular in raiding and hell, maybe even in rated battlegrounds. Because it's, as you can see, by the time the spell is finished, actually worn out, you've nearly got another cast ready to go, which is crazy if you ask me. So perhaps they'll change this. But either way, it's looking good. It's an interesting spell to use. So Cleanse the Weak has been removed as a PvP talent. It is going to be gone from the game. It was a talent that you could pick, which would basically mean that if you cleanse Moonfire and Sunfire from one target in the raid team, you would also cleanse it from everyone in the raid team as long as they were in range of your aura. It's a massive nerf for rated battlegrounds and Holy Paladins. But and arenas too, to be honest with you, because you can't triple cleanse anymore. One cleanse for 3 dispels, very good value for global time, right? Now Divine Plea is coming in addition to Daybreak. So what that means is you can spend your Daybreak, and based on how many glimmers you have active, it will give you mana back. Now once you've cast Daybreak, you also get Divine Plea to occur, and that will give you mana back. So this has been added, I'd imagine, to counteract the fact that obviously in PvE, there's lots of targets, therefore lots of glimmers are up. So when you cast Daybreak, you're going to get a lot of mana. But in arenas, there's only 1 or 2 targets. So that would mean that you wouldn't get much mana back. So how do they balance the two, right? So this is a change that's PvP based, to be honest. Divine Plea will ensure that the balance of mana is correct between Holy Paladins and the other healers. And in PvE, you can't cast Divine Plea. So that means that you're, again, going to be balanced because they've got 2 separate mana regeneration balances. Interesting. Light's Protection, the talent we mentioned earlier, is now going to be no longer given an 8% static damage reduction from the Glimmer. It's actually going to be split across the board of all the targets with the Glimmer, and it's going to be 16% damage reduction, between them. So it will not be 16% for each target. It will be split between the targets and will change depending. Avenging Crusader won't be costing 5 Holy Power. That was really hard to build to get to 5 Holy Power. You couldn't really do the ability situationally, and I can see where they've made that change. That's a change for the better, but what they've also done is they've increased the cooldown to a minute, which makes sense. There's not many cooldowns in the game with a 45-second cooldown. It means it'll line up with things better, but also it means it's a bit of a nerf, so bear that in mind. Holy Light and a lot of the heals cost a lot less mana now, which is really good because we were going out mana clearly. We've got to receive the healing done reduction, but then we're going to be able to heal more before we go out of mana, which is really good. Light of the Martyr actually gets a 10% healing increase, which is really good. And the damage done is now going to be hitting you harder. 60% of it is damage to you. Light of the Martyr gets a 10% damage increase. Light of the Martyr gets a 10% healing increase, but it will actually hit you harder now for the amount that it heals. It used to hit you for 50% of the heal. Now it's going to be 60% of the heal. Hammer of Wrath cooldown is going to be increased by 150% instead of 100. So it's going to be even bigger of a cooldown. And Veneration, the ability that makes it heal when you cast a Hammer of Wrath, as you would in melee wings, that's been reduced, right? So the damage, healing done by that is going to be 250% of damage done, not 500%, just like Avenging Crusader. So that's a massive nerf to that. Massive. I think it was healing a bit too much personally, but I think that's a bit overkill. It's making it a bit weak. Glimmer of Light, Blessed Focus, Glimmer increasing to 10%, like I said, was crap. I said that was too little, no one's going to pick that. Now it's 20%. So maybe that is worth it, especially for like 2v2 arenas, having a 20% increase on your Glimmer for one target. That sounds pretty good to me. Now, Saved by the Light's absorb effect is increased by 50%. This is pretty big. You have to pick this in arenas. It's very powerful. At the moment, it gives like a 60k absorb, but it will be even more with that. So that's fantastic to see. Glimmer of Light healing increase has been reduced. It was too strong. I did think that because it was actually more healing from Glimmer of Light on a single target than Holy Shock. So that makes sense. Glorious Dawn, the chance to reset has been reduced. So it was obviously resetting Holy Shock way too much. This is an interesting one. So on the left-hand side tree, there was a talent before that Holy Paladins would pick to increase the damage of their judgment and extend their wings. No longer. Now you have 2 charges of Hammer of Wrath when you pick the Vanguard's momentum, and you actually also have you generate more holy power from the Hammer of Wrath. So you get an extra holy power when you do a Hammer of Wrath. This is interesting as it will play in well with Veneration. That Hammer of Wrath will now give you 2 holy power and heal the raid team. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, especially in PvP. Breaking Dawn on a 2-point note is kind of crazy. So mana, so Daybreak now restores 25% less mana. Is that a good or bad thing? Well, we'll have to see it in play. Avenging Crusader, that costing 18% base mana per cast now. That Avenging Crusader, Daybreak now restores 25% less mana. But Avenging Crusader costs 18% of base mana. So you can only cost it 5 times and then you're room. I think in the next patch, Holy Paladins are going to be pretty strong, but they're going to be very fun to play. That's the main thing. It's going to be great to go into an M+ and play. I don't know how it's going to be in terms of melee wings or normal wings, which one you're going to pick. But either way, I can tell you now it's going to be more interesting, less random. Farty Lions, thanks for rallying me up on my stream if you're already supporting me there. And I will see you in the next one. Remember, good prevails.